Radio. It's Tuesday evening and it's just after 6 p.m. UK time. This is the spiritual discussion. I'm Saad in southeast London, where the weather is now bright, is sunny, and somehow a little bit cloudy as well, and warm as well. With me, as usual, is Gregory. Gregory, how are you, and how is the weather where you are?
Well, it's still bright and slightly warm.
Okay, just like us here in London. Welcome, listeners, to this spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin. I'm just going to make sure Gregory's still there. I think we lost him for a second. So, yes, the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin. And we always have a new topic for discussion. The topic tonight is only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. Only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. This is a quote from a lecture in the Grail Message, which we will hear about it a bit later. If you wish to join us with any questions or comments on this topic, you can call us or call, text or use WhatsApp to our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 004479 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, that is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is blessradio1, the number 1.com. And if you scroll down the home page, you will see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abrushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings, Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic we are discussing tonight is only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. Only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And then there's one other way you can contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. There you'll find, if you scroll down the homepage, a box called Bless Chat, and you can type in your questions or comments in that box. Gregory, as you know, I like to always look at the meaning of the words in the topic. So again, the topic tonight is only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. So the first word there is only. In the dictionary, it gives me the meaning, and no one or nothing more besides. Or another word they give is solely. Gregory, anything you would like to say on that definition?
It is very basic.
Right.
And therefore, for now, that particular one suffice.
Okay, fine. So we will continue, and as we go further, we will, expand where it's necessary. So thank you. The next word is man, the key word, I will call it. Here it says two definitions are given in the dictionary. An adult male human being. What do you say about this one, Gregory?
That is not inclusive, and that is not what is meant at all.
Right. So I will continue with the second meaning in the dictionary. It's a human being of either sex, a person. Is that good? Better now?
That's precise enough, yes.
Good. Thank you. So it's always good to check these things. So we continue. I mean, I could have used the word human being, but that's not what the quote is. So I decided to continue with the exact quote from the Grail message. So the next key word is lives. And here it says in the dictionary, remain alive. What do you say to that one, Gregory?
Of course it is, but again, that needs to be explored further.
Sure. So the second one, it says make one's home in a particular place or with a particular person. I'm not sure how good that one is there, Gregory.
it does not suffice for what is needed.
Yes, and of course, as you always say, yes, the whole sentence needs to be the whole topic. The words in the whole topic need to be considered together. So, of course, when it is out of context, you will see that it's sort of the words, the dictionary meaning doesn't make sense. So I will continue. The next one, the key word I've got is laws. And it says the system of rules which a particular country or community recognizes as regulating the actions of its members and which it may enforce by imposition of penalties. What do you say to that there, Gregory?
Again, you yourself can find out that these are very narrow perspective that is being painted. That which is being discussed here are universal, so independent of the containment, which is referred to as states or human personality. These are perspectives which transcends all that exists. That is what is referring to.
Right. And of course, just a reminder, listeners, the topic tonight is only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. So we're talking about the laws of God, which is universal, as you're saying, Gregory, not law of a particular country or community, as it's given in this definition. I'm going to continue. There was another meaning of the law, but I will just continue. The next word I found looked up is God. And it says here in dictionary, in Christianity and other monotheistic religions, the creator and the ruler of the universe, the source of all moral authority, the supreme being. What do you say to this definition there, Gregory, of God?
Is wholly inadequate.
Right.
Or it has been tied to the intellect, to the limitations of man's perceptive capabilities. So it's very inadequate.
Okay. Would you like to expand now, or we'll talk further later?
We should proceed with what we need to discuss.
Sure. In fact, there's a second meaning given in the dictionary for God, and I will read that one. And it says in certain other religions, a superhuman being or spirit worshipped as having power over nature or human fortunes, a deity. How good is this one, Gregory?
Whatever definition is put out there by the dictionary, as long as it refers to the cramped perceptions of human personalities, it becomes inadequate. So the one you just mentioned is completely inadequate.
Right. Okay, I will continue, and in our further discussions, we will hope to get clarity on this. So yes, I'm getting a picture. Maybe it's just human conceptions we are getting from these dictionary meanings, and the real definition of the Almighty God is much greater than this. So we just carry on. The next word and the last word is free. And here in the dictionary, again, I've got two meanings. Able to act or be done as one wishes, not under the control of another. How good is this definition there, Gregory?
Again, you already provided, a perspective which says human perspectives. And again, you find it so very narrow that the essence of the meaning is completely lost.
Right. Okay, so we will, there's one other definition given in the dictionary for free. So I will look at that as well. Not or no longer confined or imprisoned. What do you say to this?
One would repeat the same answer, though it's a pointer, but it's still highly intellectual. That which we are planning to discuss, the basis must be intuitive, else it will not encapsulate or point to the precise meaning of what is meant.
Okay. So we will now. Yes, as I said, we will find out things more in our discussion. So we just continue. So hopefully get more satisfactory understanding. Now, my first question really, Gregory, in terms of the topic itself. So just to remind everybody again, the topic we're discussing tonight is only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. And this is a quote from the Grail Message from the lecture Submission. Gregory, I want to ask, can one, that is human being, that is, can one really be free? Why I ask this? Because we all have responsibility. And so you can't really say you are free.
Well, the perspectives that have been used in the definitions have been erroneous. Freedom does not mean lack of accountability. For were there lack of accountability, then there would be no laws as such. There will be no free will. Therefore, the perspectives, all the narrow confines which has been used for freedom has no basis. Whereas what is discussed here are based on the laws of creation, the laws of nature, through which all that exists came. So there must have been a perspective, there must be a context. That context must not be ignored. Well, whenever it is ignored, then it doesn't make any sense. When you have the case of a human personality that has come into existence, such a process of coming into existence is not arbitrary. There are rules through which such a personality came into existence. These rules, in quotes, are the laws of nature. For if the laws of nature are swept away, then there is no existence. If the laws of creation are swept away, then there is no existence. But as long as these divine laws, all creation laws are considered, then existence must be considered. For there must be a framework. It is the framework that is being swept away that causes the confusion.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for this, for giving the clarity we need to really look at this topic, you can say, in the right way. We always know there has to be a context. And so the first question almost is, what is the context? Before we start talking about a topic, we need to know what is the context. Otherwise, I could be talking, let's say, some other world, and Gregory, you could be talking from another different world, and we will definitely be, not be able to see what we are, even understand each other, you can say, going in different directions. So this is why it's so important to lay out this context. And you have said it's the laws of nature that are operating in this world that is, let's say, creation, which the human beings are living in. So, in fact, we came through them, these laws of nature. We came through that. Nature sort of was the source of the how we came into being. So, well, maybe source is not quite right, but the process is through nature that we came. And so that is the context that we need to be aware of. And so when we act, making a decision or, let's say a choice, then it is in this, through the nature that we are acting. So that is in this creation, not completely like there's nothing else there except us. So, okay. Now, my next question, Gregory, really is so obvious. We need to know, what are these laws of God? Is it the Ten Commandments? Is it the rules and regulation of each religion? Yeah. So I'll just repeat it actually. What are these laws of God? Is it the Ten Commandments? The rules or regulations of each religion? Or even something else?
What you yourself have just mentioned, the laws that are referred to here has nothing to do or did not originate from the Ten Commandments or originated from religions. All these are different perspectives, guidelines according to the capabilities of the human personalities, what they are able to grasp. Whereas that which is referred to as the laws, these form the framework of everything, be it the smallest of the smallest to the largest of the largest, within the confines of creation. Whatever exists in creation is in motion. That no personality can deny. Because whatever exists is in motion, therefore motion is a law in creation. And that holds for all times. Motion, which is a law in creation, is not religious. It's not the Ten Commandments. It has nothing to do with all this. It is independent and stands on its own. That framework stands on its own. And that is why it is a law in creation. How human personalities perceive it is peculiar to their abilities, how they themselves have developed their abilities. That is how they see it. What no one can refute is that all motion, all activities have come into existence in motion. So that is the basis.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for giving this picture of this motion, the law of motion, which you can quite simply picture that. You can look at it from, it's not a religious thinking. Even you can think of it from scientific thinking, but it's just law is a movement, isn't it? Motion is movement. So very easy to, let's say, appreciate. Actually, one of the science laws I remember is where there's an action, there's a reaction. Or when there's an action, I've forgotten exactly the words for it, but something like that. So it's quite simple. An action results in a reaction. So it means to have a motion, something must have started this motion. So let me see, Gregory. This law of motion, is it, how do we put it into our understanding of our lives? I mean, I can understand in a simple way, you, like say, push something and then it moves. But what about making decisions? And where does that come in, this law of motion?
Now, with the basic understanding, simple as it is, that motion is a law in creation, then one needs to investigate further. And fundamentally, there are two types of motion, just two types, not a million types. Whatever motion that is found out there can be reduced to two types. The first type is that motion in which the end of the motion flows back to the beginning of the motion. Maybe some call that one revolution, some call that vibration, whatever they care to call it. The end flows back to the beginning. The other type is that in which the end does not flow back to the beginning. That's all, just those two types. With careful reflection, it becomes very clear that in which the end flows back to the beginning can also be categorized as that of a reciprocal activity. It can also be categorized, when viewed aright, as that in which the end flowing back to the beginning gives the impression of an attraction. That is why it went back to the beginning. Therefore, from one observation, there are two, in quotes, bylaws. First one being that of a reciprocal activity, the second one being that of an attraction of that which seem homogeneous. Were it not homogeneous in movement, it will not go back to the beginning. The so-called sciences also refer to this as resonance. So one can see how clarified, how simplified these things are. The other part in which the end does not flow back to the beginning, that gives the greatest impression of a cooling down. For if things did not cool down, if things did not precipitate, if things are not denser, then through motion it would have gone back to the beginning. So that other part, when viewed aright, presents a densification, which densification does not allow the end to go back to the beginning. Basically, that is what many call gravitation. Whether they call it material gravitation, very clear that there must have been a process of densification that does not allow the end to go back to the beginning. From these three views, from these three discussions, one can already see that it applies to the smallest, whether you call the smallest an atom or subatomic, whatever they care to call it, or you're talking of molecules, or talking of genes, whatever one cares to call it. Even the activities of man is also governed, whether these activities are of one's thoughts or of one's deeds or of one's intuition. All these are or manifest as motion. And therefore, these laws apply. Where responsibility comes in becomes very clear. For one that has initiated a motion, then that person that initiated it, that personality, is responsible because he or she initiated it by permitting or by using the energy, the power which is in there, and he himself or herself acting as a rudder to change the direction. So it becomes very clear that it is he or she is responsible, has to account for it. A very simple example, which many may also consider, is that of you do not hold a stone responsible. The stone does not make decisions. Neither do you hold plants. Neither do you hold animals. You do not hold a child responsible. Or would you hold a child who is maybe 1 day old, 5 day old, 1 year old responsible? Responsibility sets in when one is talking about human personalities. That means they have some inner ability. That inner ability that grants them the possibility of making decisions in accordance to motion. Whether they wish the motion to be of benefit to them, to be of benefit to them in their thoughts, in their deeds, or in their intuition. Not only of benefit to them, but also of benefit to all in creation. That means is able to ennoble when such a decision is made that is of benefit to all, is equivalent to one for all and all for one. Therefore, such threads which have been woven is of benefit to the individual because, very simply, the power which streams through with such decisions is noble, and that power will continue to flow to the individual If, however, he or she makes a turn in which the deeds, the thoughts, and the intuitions are not of benefit to creation or to nature, then, in all naturalness, as a matter of course, he or she has tied a knot for the power that percolates, that makes things possible in creation, will be such that it will keep the individual down. It will become like a pressure that forces the individual, in which the end does not flow back to the beginning. That individual feels heavy. So that explains the whole thing, why you have all this, when people talk about freedom, that freedom can only be considered in context with motion, which is a law in creation. How it then manifests depends on how the individual who has access intuitively to this power uses it.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this very detailed picture you've given about the laws or law of motion, and also how it works with how we make decisions and as human beings. I've got more questions to ask on this topic. Dear listeners, I just want to let you know you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdrushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. Only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. This is a quote from a lecture called Submission in the Grail Message. If you have any questions or comments, you can join us by contacting us by contacting our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way you can contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. There, if you scroll down on the home page, you will see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And as I mentioned, we are broadcasting on blessradio1, the number 1.com. That's the live show which we do on Tuesday evenings from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. You can listen also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to, that's the next day. So go to youtube.com and then type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again that's the number 1 there, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is Only the Man Who Lives in the Laws of God is Free. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM / Bless Radio 1. Again, that's the number 1. Now, Gregory, you've been talking about the laws of motion, and you expressed them initially that part by going into more detail about it, that some actions we do, I've forgotten exactly the phrase, but some things we do, they return back to the original cycle, you can say, back to its origin, and then so that's how that is completed. And then there's other things where the cycle, the reaction doesn't come back to its origin. So that's that was one of them. And then a second one, that was a second one, which possibility of it. And then there's the third one, which was gravity, where things which are light rise and things which are heavy, sink. This is, this is all laws of nature we are talking about within this law of motion, and it sounds a bit scientific even. And what I was wondering, Gregory, is it necessary that we need to understand these laws to sort of obey or to follow them? Or can we just follow, I don't know if we can follow them without understanding them. Yeah.
That has always been a basic question many people ask. And that being the case, it shows clearly that there are two perspectives. The perspective of the intellect, which is narrowness, trying to confine that which is mobile into that which is rigid. That is the work of the intellect, to make things more confined, because the motion which is discussed is so vibrant. And for many, they are unable to contain it, to perceive it as something which is one. And that is only possible when one views this motion or the effects of this motion in an intellectual way. The other way is to have a view which is more intuitive. That means non-intellectual. The challenge is, how should man go about it? Only through practice. Only through practice in viewing the internal content of things and the external manifestation. Therefore, one should not consider that because there are some who are unable to express themselves intellectually it means they don't understand it. Far from it. Many a farm laborer or many a woman, like our grandmothers, they were far more intuitive. They perceived these things in pictures, therefore they knew it. But they could not explain it in such a way as many an intellectual that wants these things to be narrowed down to their level. And therefore, they kept quiet. Of course, some of these things may be interpreted in a narrow fashion. But the first step is to grasp it intuitively. Subsequently, through making use of this intuition, the human personality becomes sharper, becomes more reticent, becomes more reflective, becomes more open, now understanding that he or she receives of the goodness, and as a law in motion, a law in creation, he or she who receives must make use of it, means understand it better, and ensure that that which has been received is passed on to others through one form or the other. For that personality who abides by that becomes free of any coagulants, free of any things which will oppress himself or herself. That is the freedom that is referred to. Because you will find there's no accumulation, which accumulation forms densification and lumps and presses the person down. He or she is now able to move more vibrantly. That is what is referred to. As to making it available to others, only through examples. Very simple example one may give. Many a time we listen to music, which music touches our core. We enjoy the music, but do you understand the music? We rejoice with the composer and we sing praises. The composer who was able to perceive of notes, assemble them together to produce such a vibrant, harmonious tune and passed it on as fulfilled. Does it mean that the composer will have to teach us how he or she did it? Not really. That should be a touchstone for many to reflect on.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer there. So, yeah, it's not about intellectual understanding. It is about, you could say, intuitive understanding. And so you don't need to have a degree to realize, to understand these things. In fact, as you mentioned before, these things you practice and things you learn from practicing, do this or do that. So, yes, thanks for that answer. Now, Gregory, I'm wondering, these laws of God or you mentioned the law of motion there. Um, are we meant to just, how can I say, find out about it through, how can I say, living, maybe I should say like that, rather than maybe scripture, because we said it's not the Ten Commandments, these laws of God here, or rules and regulation of each different religions or whatever. That's not the laws we are referring to as laws of God. You took as the law of motion, which is, well, you may think of it as scientific, but we know it's not really there. That's just a way of looking at it only. So is it, Gregory, we are supposed to get to know about these laws? Is it just through experiencing in life, or is there somewhere we can, in quotes, study or learn about it, about these laws?
Again, thanks for this particular question. One gave an example of a personality who, in his or her activities, composes music. And in doing that, was able to reach out to many others. If you ask yourself very carefully, there are many who know how to sing. They didn't go to a university to learn to sing. It's just deep within them. However, there was a need for practice in a more concentrated form to receive a broad outline. And that is why you find in the case of music, you may have people who are professors of music, but have never ever composed any piece of music. So a university degree or an institution is not a prerequisite to living a life of harmony. The human personality, who, when it reaches the age of maturity, is able to perceive aright if he or she wishes to. For is there any personality who is of flesh and blood, who does not breathe, who does not breathe in and breathe out? Have they ever reflected on it, how it is? Of course, many already knew of this millennia and millennia ago. Was it called scientific? Of course not. That which you refer to as science only came into, was only called science just a few hundred years ago. That which is referred to here is intrinsic to the human personality. What has not happened is that for many, they have not awakened to it to be able to make use of that which is simple and clear before them in such a way as to be able to explain it to others. And you can only do that when you practice. So many here today, oh, this is scientific, this is unscientific, and all that. Those things don't hold. What holds is the consistency. For were you to ask your great-grandmothers, if they were still alive, how in their intuition they were able to perceive of events, which events are not perceptible as such to the intellect, they will be able to explain it in such a simple way. So the problem is of the individual not having taken seriously what has been passed on to it. So there is no need for university, but there is a need for keen observation and making use of your keen observation to the benefits, not only for yourself, but for all.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, again for this answer about the, would say, discovering these laws of God. I've got more questions to ask you in a moment. I just want to remind the listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message, by Abdushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. Only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way you can contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That's Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. There, if you scroll down on the homepage, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. You can type in your questions or comments in this box. And as I mentioned, we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1 there, space, live stream. That's for the live show, which we broadcast on Tuesday evenings, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. You can listen to the recording of this show the next day, also on YouTube. Again, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1 there, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our other previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, we are talking about the laws of God, which you may understand or you may not understand. But there's another angle that we haven't looked at yet. What if somebody doesn't agree with these laws of God? Because, you mentioned we have free will. You can obey or disobey. And maybe, and we also said, the right way is to understand, even, but somehow, maybe for some reason, and we see it in the world, the human beings want to do their own way, not God's way. So that is a free will. We all have it. And so we can disobey these laws of God. Now, what I want to ask on that, let's look at it two ways first, Gregory. If one is, let's say, start with this way, ignorant about these laws, would that someone be guilty of not obeying the laws of God?
The counter question that one may put across, maybe we throw light on whether one agrees or disagrees. Is there anyone who wishes not to be able to breathe in and breathe out for the next 2 hours, 10 hours, 1 day, 2 days, because he or she disagrees with that law of motion, of breathing in and breathing out? Is there anyone who will say in ignorance, I don't want to breathe because I have my free will? These questions must be considered very carefully. Is there anyone who makes use of the physical body that has been granted to it and is able to take in nutrients, to take in water, to take in food, to refresh himself, and refuses to agree to waste elimination because he or she has a free will? These are the questions that many must ask themselves before they beat their chest and say, I have free will. None. For such a personality will eliminate himself. That gives the answer. Sooner rather than later, such a personality that violates these laws, which are intrinsic for the smooth experiencing of the individual, the violation will trigger a reciprocal activity sooner rather than later. So ignorance is not an excuse. Is there anyone who, due to ignorance, refused to eat for a year, for 2 years, for 10 years? Is there anyone who refuses to exercise himself and stay under a hollow tree for 1 year, 2 years, 10 years without exercising himself? These are the questions each personality must ask himself. Most of these things are just intellectual debates and exercise. Nothing beneficial to the spirit, which spirit is of paramount importance. This body, which is granted to the individual to experience, is only granted for a short period of time when the human personality needs to experience here on earth.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer. I was noticing that you were looking at examples where, let's say, involving the body, you can say, where you can't really, how can I say, if you go against the body's system, if I can say like that, then you're going to get into very quick trouble. Well, even if it's not quick, you're definitely going to be in a lot of trouble. And, you know, how can I say, destroy your own existence on the earth. So for sure, that is, how can I say, ignorance in this one, you'll be finished very quickly. And so people wouldn't, let's say, purposely or even ignorantly make these mistakes or think that way, let me say. But I will come with something else now. I'm thinking something consciously where man chooses making a decision, you know. I mean, all of these are decisions, of course they are. And of course, even their life or death decision, if you're going to not breathe, for sure. But I want to think of something, let's say, on a different way. So, for example, let's see now. Okay, I was going to ask this one later, but I'll do it now. So what about our conscience, Gregory, and morality? We may decide to not to listen, you know, let's say out of revenge, somebody may do something we didn't like, and then and we decide to take revenge. And even though we have our conscience behind, you know, saying, no, 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 don't harm this person, don't do that. You know, maybe you even kill somebody. It may not be that they have done something so terrible, but you might decide to do this sort of killing to that person that you say has made you, you know, made you something bad to you that you think like this. So I'm wondering there, Gregory, what's my question there? Yeah, you know, you were talking about the laws of motion. So does that's as being the laws of God, does the laws of God, do the laws of God include morality and like listening to the conscience?
At the beginning of the discussion, the reference was made of the smallest of the smallest to the largest of the largest within creation, within nature, and the contents that exist within creation. Therefore, that which you yourself might have considered, in which we talked about the thoughts of men, the deeds of men, and the intuitions of men, or of the individual. It is the intuitions that, when considered as a whole, form, in most cases, the conscience of the individual. Therefore, if the individual decides to ignore the suggestions on caution, then he or she has made a decision of ignoring. The example which had been taken, which had been shown about the individual, was taken because many are able to understand something when it applies to themselves, when it applies first and foremost to their physical body, as of the conscience, as of their thoughts, they may not pay much attention. And therein lies the problem. Because sooner or later, they will find that they have exceeded the boundaries and has caused so much problem for themselves. So it is not possible to say, oh, I didn't listen to my conscience. Now I'm in trouble. All right. And I want to get out of it. Excuses, excuses, excuses never solve a problem. Only when you consider the problem in its entirety and in your activities, learn to respond in quiet reflection rather than a knee-jerk reaction. Only then is the personality able to make progress. So it is not wise to ignore one's conscience, all those gentle promptings which form a pressure. And then you say, well, it has happened. The reciprocal activities must come. It cannot be otherwise. And therefore, when someone makes a plan to steal from another, or to do that which is not beneficial to another, because he or she cannot immediately see what a reciprocal action that has been put in place, then that is only due to his or her densification. Is unable to perceive of that which is lighter. In that case, because it has not awakened the finer senses, that means the finer sensing through intuition not being awakened are dead, then it is said, let the dead bury their dead.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer. While I was asking you the question, I saw one of the listeners send I will say a comment. He says, God give us laws and man still do not obey. Thou shalt not kill. So anything you'd like to say to that, Gregory?
It is self-explanatory, but many should not think that these have been thrust on the individual. They must understand it aright. And that is the key. That which you don't understand, the Lord gave us laws. That means it's as if He said, do this, do this, do this. That never ever happens. Advice. And that advice, once taken intuitively, once become cautious. So it's not that you have a school teacher who is backing in your head and say, this is what you must do, what you must not do. Well, the free will is there to decide whether to follow or not to follow.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for that answer. Hope, how can I say, your point on it. Now, Gregory, we know that on the earth, obviously there are many countries and each one has their own law, earthly laws, you can say. And even, I'm trying to think on, so let's say that some of these earthly laws, which do not always, how can I say, align with the laws of God. And even the laws, when they're enacted, you cannot be sure, they're subject to human judgment, even mistakes, and some people can be partial, or prejudiced. Um, um, so what I want to ask there, and even we know the human beings can be imperfect or are imperfect. So, which means they wouldn't follow 100% surely the laws of God. So, okay, I've so many different questions in my head on this one. Can one, Gregory, follow? Let me see. Oh, I wrote it. I wrote some question, but I don't want to ask that particular question like that. So, yeah, let me say it like this, Gregory. If you see an inconsistency between the earthly law and the law of God, and of course, this is a person who wishes to follow the law of God, what should he be doing? Should he disobey the earthly law because the law of God is let's say the more important one? Yeah.
It would be wrong to say disobey or not to disobey. Each personality has the free will to be or not to be. The individual must exercise their rights, must exercise their capabilities, must exercise their talents. In the exercise of one's talent, again and again, it becomes clear on what to do and what not to do. For when it is pointed out to them, don't do this, because that is an external admonition. That admonition does not percolate, does not sink in deep to touch one's thoughts, and subsequently it has very little impact on one's intuition or one's spirit, which the spirit will take away as benefit. Because the personality hasn't exerted itself well enough, so the impact is minimal or none at all. And that is why sometimes these questions are asked. For anyone who, having gone through severe experiences, and these experiences have registered pleasantly or unpleasantly, they have registered within one's intuition and subsequently one's spirit, that personality holds on to that as a touch, as a guidepost. For that personality is very mobile in spirit. It's not indolent in spirit. And because he or she is not indolent in spirit, is alive, then many a thing will flow to that person. Will flow to that person such that he or she will discover one thing or the other, as if his or her eyes are being opened to the intricacies in life, in deeds, in thoughts, and also in intuitions. Then the questions which many now ask, due to their lack of self-exertion, will vanish. All that we keep stressing are personal wishes. Which personal wishes sometimes is due to the indolence of man. Look carefully. The so-called millionaires you have all over the place, which school did they go to learn business? The so-called musicians you have all over the place, which school did they go to learn to have become professors of music? None. It is that which they themselves had experienced and have worked at it again and again that they have used in the upbuilding. That says it all.
Thanks, Gregory. While you were speaking, one of the listeners responded to this question as well with a point, which I'll read. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's. So this I can say is from in the Bible when Jesus spoke to the, let's say, in response to a similar question. So anything you'd like to say to that, Gregory?
Nothing much, but to stress that that which is referred to as belonging to Caesar is basically that which is necessary for the intellect, and that which is considered as belonging to the Lord Almighty are the works of the Spirit, which is beneficial in creation. That is what is referred to render to Caesar that which is Caesar's, and that which is of the Lord to the Lord. The services of Caesar, these are services. That means the intellect, which is referred to as Caesar, is the executive of the intuitions, which intuitions are passed on to man. Go to the musicians and see how they fulfill it diligently. How in their activities they are able to perceive of the vibrations which they now assemble diligently to make it a unit, to make it harmonious. That is the work of Caesar as a chief executive in service. In service to the intuitions, which intuitions are impressions which creation has sent to man. So it becomes so very clear if the human personality strives after that of the intuitions in loyalty, or might one say also in purity.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer there, or your points that you've made there. I was thinking, Gregory, you know, I've already mentioned the earthly laws. They can be having, let's say, weaknesses in them or prejudices in them. And then, and you've just distinguished that let's say, when you talk about render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render to God what the Almighty, what is the Almighty's, and you pointed out that the Caesar is pointing to the intellect, and the, let's say, the what is to do with God is to do with the spiritual activity. So now I want to ask on that, sort of thinking of that, when, let's say, somebody is a I don't know, I'll call him victim of an innocent victim of some earthly so-called justice, and they are convicted or given a sentence, which is based on, let's say, wrong assessment. Is that person still to be considered to be free in the laws of God? How can you look at that and say they are free? Because the earthly, how can I say, judgment, and the result of that judgment is, the person is suffering innocently. And however, from the laws of God, they are supposed to be free, or they should be free. So is that, I just want to understand, how is that still, that injustice basically that is happening, is it, how is that remedied, or how is that aligning with the laws of God? Let me say like this.
Maybe you should be asking, how do they disalign, not aligning?
Yes.
The thing which everyone must strive to understand very clearly is that on earth, you don't have to do anything bad. You don't have to commit any crime before you can be punished. You can be punished for not committing a crime. You can be punished for being helpful. You can be punished for supporting others to ensure that they live well. Such absurdity and inconsistency, such arbitrariness is possible with man. And that's why you find today the quagmire, which quagmire has been precipitated due to the intellectual activities of man, where in their lack of understanding aright, interpret that which has been passed on to them in such a narrow way, and you hear an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And these things are perpetuated again and again with vigor. That's such ridiculous way of thinking is possible with man. Such inconsistencies, such arbitrariness exist again and again, whether from an individual or from a group of individuals to a community to a nation. Those things are facts, cannot be denied. Else, how can you explain that you require almost, half the population to interpret the simple laws which man has determined, has written down? Because they themselves who wrote it down do not understand what they've written. So the laws of man, which are so inconsistent, cannot be used as a basis. For where there is consistency, which consistencies resonates in the laws of nature, in the laws of creation, or in the divine laws, then you will find that the power that streams in creation, that streams in nature, will be of benefit to the individual and will bring happiness to the individual. Otherwise, the laws which have been fabricated, which are filled with inconsistencies, which are filled with hatred, which leads to a quagmire where the individuals cannot move forward or backwards, such are such that the power that streams through does not stream through in purity. And therefore, it has been so weakened that it does not bring any benefit to the individual. On the contrary, that which has been precipitated wrongly, before long, the individual that gave rise to it will have to experience it one way or the other to come to a recognition of that which he or she has precipitated. Only then, in coming to recognition, in one way or the other, only then can, through his or her activities, come to redeem himself through his activities. So without a recognition, one way or the other, the human personality is unable to extricate itself. Very clearly, look at the thief on the cross. While one was cursing, the other one, having realized what it has done, was able to plead for forgiveness. Many a personality should reflect on these things.
Thanks very much for this answer there, Gregory. I want to let the listeners know you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdrushin. And if you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. This is a quote from a lecture in the Grail Message called Submission. And if you have any questions or comments in this topic, please do. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way you can contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1.com. If you scroll down on the homepage, you will see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And as I mentioned, we are broadcasting on blessradio1.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space live stream. That's for the live show, which is on Tuesday evenings, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. You can also listen to this show, the recording of the show, the next day, also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, I was thinking about these laws of God. You can see complete justice, the laws of motion, you mentioned it, total justice there. And then I'm thinking, what about forgiveness and love? It seems the justice of the laws of God, you cannot escape. You have to sort of pay. It can be a good thing. If you do good things, you get the good reward. If you do bad things, you get the bad reward, or punishment, somebody may call it that way. But what about forgiveness? How does it work there? Because you do hear in spiritual teachings about forgiveness. Can you, how can I say, redeem through forgiveness rather than have to pay the penalty every time?
Is the question about redemption in the sense that one has to forgive another person, or that the person himself has to come to recognition by severing all the ignoble threads that hold him or her down? Why this is framed that way is it is the human personality that bound itself. When presented with the way out of it, the free will is still there to follow or not to follow. Even when the reciprocal activity has a shattering effect on the human personality, he or she still refuses to move away. Therefore, it must be a personality who, through their stubbornness, do not wish for forgiveness. The example that was given of the thief on the cross makes it very clear. When he saw the effect of what he had done and can perceive another who has done nothing, it's as simple as that. For when the human spirit refuses to improve itself, it builds, through his activity, builds a wall around itself, such that that which should reach him or her, it refuses or does not penetrate. Then you have, through vigorous activities or some actions, that tries to shatter this wall that has been built around, that the personality has built around it. He or she calls that punishment. Refuses to come to recognition. Both joy as well as sorrow keep rapping at the soul of man, such that it will wake up and follow that which is joyful, such that its weaving will return that which is joyful, which is pleasant. But if it refuses, that is a choice. So when forgiveness is talked about, it's because they haven't viewed it properly. For it is useless to say, oh, you have been forgiven. And yet, you believe you have been forgiven, and you still go back and perpetrate such evil things on others. And you say you have been forgiven, and you keep, it means, therefore, you lack the true conception of forgiveness. Each one must examine themselves aright. Then, and only then, when they come to the right understanding and are prepared to make amends, first within themselves, then in joy, there are many others around that are higher via a chain to be able to mediate to him the paths that he or she needs to follow to live aright. In such a way, the personality, through the right attitude, redeems himself.
Thanks a lot for this answer there, Gregory. Today I have so many questions, and I'm just realizing we're coming not too far from the end of the show. So I just want to pick a few from these one questions. Let's say many people are suffering in these times. We are seeing the wars, let's say, with Israel, Gaza, and Sudan civil war, Yemen civil war, Myanmar civil war, Congo civil war, so many places. And then others are even enjoying their lives, you can say. So I'm wondering, Gregory, are these people on the surface, you may not see, oh, they're not the cause of what's happening to them in this life, at least you cannot see maybe straight away like that. So I'm wondering, are these people who are suffering some, especially civilians, that's what, because they're not the ones who are actively taking part, but they have to seem to suffer the consequences of people's decisions, who are the leaders who have made decisions to make war. So are they these people who are suffering? Well, it's a double-edged question. Those who are suffering at this time, Gregory, are they reaping from past lives? And those who are enjoying their lives, maybe it seems they haven't done too much to enjoy, to deserve it. Are they also maybe reaping from their previous earth life?
The simple answer is no. For what lies behind these manifestations are so varied. Of course, there are some who, in quotes, are living a life of affluence, while others are suffering. But as you well know, many a person wakes up when he or she undergoes severe restrictions or terrible suffering. Then they wake up. Then, just like the thief on the cross, then they start reflecting. So, most of these things which are happening are a cause or hits us so as to be able to reflect. What is sad, those people who precipitated these sufferings, they themselves will have to, before too long, undergo such a grinding that such will never ever happen again in their lives if they are able to survive the grinding. So each personality that is alive must look out to the present happening, and in their thoughts and in their intuitions, make use of the suffering of others in order to understand the ignobleness of such sufferings, such that which it will trigger deep within them understanding for others. And in that, they will, before long, cultivate a virtue of understanding the suffering of others, such that they will find a way out. They will then restructure their lives. They should not wait for suffering to reach them. But what do you find? Those who suffering haven't visited, they keep gambling, so-called stuffing themselves with the so-called good things of life, devoid of any intuition. And before long, it reaches them. But in that case, they are not prepared. So let no one beat their chest and consider that they had sown good seeds in the past, and therefore there is no need to consider the suffering of others. Worse still are those who precipitate in their wrong attitude in revenge and punishment for others. For such activities only help them to build a very hard structure around themselves, a structure which is devoid of any understanding, which is devoid of any inner capability of empathizing with others. Before long, having built such structures here or hereafter, most likely hereafter, they themselves will have to exist with that structure until they are able, through inner maturing or inner suffering deep within themselves, they are able to shatter that which they have built up. It is they who built it. It is they who must shatter it. For if the shattering comes from the outside, they are still able to fight vigorously with their wrong views, with their wrong attitude, to remain as they are. They consider many to be their enemies, whereas it is they, in their wrong attitude, who have precipitated that, and considering they thought they had the means, they could proceed in that fashion. Before long, they themselves will find that the laws of nature, the laws of creation, which are also called the divine laws, which divine laws also have been there through the movement of the radiations that stream out of the Almighty, that He Himself, who is life, that these laws can never, ever be mocked.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer. And dear listeners, we've come to the end of the show, and I would like to now read from the Grail Message, there's a section from the lecture called Submission, where our topic title for tonight came from. So just again, we remember the topic tonight is only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. So I'm going to read this particular section now. The laws of God, thus the will of God, do not concern themselves with the opinions of these earthmen, which they have laid down in their mundane laws, even though the whole world has now considered them to be right. Whatever is not in harmony with the divine laws, there also the blow of the sword will now strike, judging in the process of redemption. All those who in the light of God's laws have suffered innocently at the hands of men may now rejoice, for henceforth they shall receive justice, while their adversaries or judges are delivered up to the justice of God. Rejoice, for this divine justice is near. It is already working in every country on earth. Look at the confusion. This is the effect of the approaching will of God. It is the setting in of the purification. For this reason, everything that is wrong among men is already now meeting with its doom, be it in economics, the state, politics, the churches, sects, peoples, families, and also in the individual. Everything is now dragged before the light, so that it may reveal and simultaneously judge itself therein. Also, what has hitherto been able to remain hidden must reveal itself as it really is, must become active, and thus finally, despairing of itself and others, disintegrate and turn to dust. Thus, even now, there is a boiling up under the pressure of the light in all countries, everywhere. Every kind of tribulation is increasing to the point of despair, until finally nothing remains but hopelessness, with the realization that the would-be saviors had only empty words besides selfish desires, but could offer no help. Spiritual warriors are sweeping over all humanity and striking sharply where a head refuses to bow. Only then there will be the right soil that pleads once more for God's help. After murder and fire, starvation, pestilence and death, after man has recognized his own incapacity, the great upbuilding begins. Then the despairing ones shall become free, free from the pressure of the darkness. But they shall also become free within themselves. To become free within, however, can only be achieved by each individual alone. Yet for this he must know what freedom means, what it is. Only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. Thus, and not otherwise, does he stand unoppressed and unconstrained in this creation. Everything then serves him instead of obstructing his path. It serves him because he uses it in the right way. God's laws in creation are in truth simply all that every man needs for a healthy, happy life in creation. They are, as it were, nourishment for his well-being. Only he who knows the will of God and lives accordingly is really free. All others must bind themselves in the many threads of the laws of this creation, because they entangle themselves. Creation originated only in the will of God, in his laws. Working together, the thread of these laws sink deeper and deeper everywhere, and forcing movement towards development, and inevitably branching out more and more in the course of the development. While in the continuous movement, new creations are perpetually formed around the threads. Thus, these laws provide at the same time the support, the possibility of continued existence, and the further expansion of creation. Nothing exists without this will of God, which alone gives movement. Everything in creation conforms to it. I'm going to stop there. The lecture continues further. This is the lecture called Submission from the Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abrushin. If you wish to get a copy of this, the Grail Message, if you wish to get that, you can come to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. Listeners, we've come to the end of the show tonight, which was on the topic of only the man who lives in the laws of God is free. Hope you've enjoyed the discussion. Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing listeners a beautiful week.
Same from me, listeners. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with another topic.